Hi friends, Jack Cochran here bringing you the next Beyond Presales podcast episode. Today we're going to have Matthew James joining us, who is New York's SC. If you didn't know that, he is. He's New York's SC. So if you've been in New York, you live in New York, or you visit New York, you should meet with him. Call him up. Send him a note. He's definitely around and a lot of fun. I've met with him in person, had a blast with him about talking on the episode. If you don't know him, he had a background in banking. In 2020, moved over into the world of solution consulting. I think I got that right. He'll talk more about sort of his past, etc., specifically related to music, because we talk all about music. We're both musicians, and there's a lot of things that are parallels between music and pre-sales. We explore a lot of those and how being a musician has actually helped both of us in our pre-sales career. So I'm not going to get in any more in between you and talking to Matthew James. So let's take you right on into the interview. Well, Matt James, Matt James. I don't know how to introduce you. Matt, welcome to the Beyond Presales podcast. Absolutely ecstatic to have you here.
Jack, I'm sorry for making it difficult. And I'm sorry to almost everyone that I've known in my entire life for making it difficult, because I've gone by so many different things in my professional life at this point. I actually joined Codat, and I've been Matthew for most of my life. And there's this obvious nickname with the name Matthew James, MJ. And as a kid, I was thinking, no, I don't like that because that's Spider-Man's girlfriend. Now, that was way before Zendaya got cast as MJ, and now I'm kind of like, all right, maybe this is a good thing. So I tried out MJ 2 years ago. Then in 2024, we were kind of like resetting our business. Then I went back to Matthew to kind of be all business again. But I think MJ is just slowly creeping its way back in. And just to make it even more confusing, on Slack, I'm Matthew James, because at my first job, I had this great analyst that I worked with in New Jersey. I was in London, and she called me Matthew James with the two first names. And I think that has a great ring to it too. So any of the above, just don't call me Matt.
Just no on the Matt, just no Matt. Okay, gotcha. When you were saying obvious nickname, I was like, oh yeah, Matt. I didn't even think MJ, which I think shows a little bit of generational thing, because MJ, I wasn't thinking Spider-Man. I was thinking Michael Jackson. MJ.
Yeah.
And so
also somewhat of a controversial figure at this point.
Yes, but I could see not wanting, even at that point, not wanting to be MJ, right?
Exactly. So, it was too complicated. There was a storied history of MJ, and now here I am trying to change it. Yeah.
At some point, you just got to own it, right? You just got to own, you know what? But that's my, if you want to be your name, it's your name, and it's going to be you. I mean, you are, after all.
My boss, she made a huge effort when I rebranded to Matthew to only call me Matthew. And it was actually excellent. I owe a lot to Nicole for doing that. But then she heard other people still calling me MJ, and it really was bugging her, because she was like, how come they can get away with it? And I was like, well, to my friends, I'm Matthew. But here we are. It's come full circle. Now I'm everything. Okay. All right.
I mean, owning it all, absolutely. I mean, you are New York's solution engineer. If you didn't know, there's one primary New York solution engineer, and it is MJ or Matthew, however the rebranding is going to work. I guess let's start. Talk to me about that a little bit. How did you kind of become New York's solution engineer? Because honestly, before I even saw it on your LinkedIn profile, that's how I kind of thought of you. I'm like, I definitely know at least one solution engineer in New York, and it's Matthew James.
And you know what? It's already paying dividends, because Jack and I caught up, I guess, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, because you were here for a little bit. So that is it playing its role. How did we get there? I like to think of it kind of like when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. Just the first person to be there and stick the flag in the thing. So here I am. I arrived in New York. I'm a solutions engineer. And I said, all right, I'm passionate about New York City. I'm passionate about this tech community. I'm passionate about fintech here. I'm passionate about solutions engineering. Let's make this something. There's some incredible people here doing incredible things. There's solutions engineers of New York who run really awesome events and bring in top-notch speakers. I thought, okay, what if we can do something in between? Because those are every quarter, every half. What if there's someone or something that can keep holding the flag of solutions engineering in New York, in fintech, all the time. And I thought, let's give it a go. Give it the old college try.
Just do it. I mean, because you started your career in pre-sales in 2020 at the height of a great time to start a new career. And thinking back, only what is now 4.5 years ago, there really wasn't a lot going on for community within the pre-sales world at that point, which is weird to think of because there are so many things going on now. You know, Pre-Sales Collective, which just launched a ton of Spider organizations realizing the value in who we are as professionals. It's weird to think that back then there was the space to say, you know what, I'm going to be this. And you can just start to be that.
It was exactly that. I have so much to say about this. I interviewed with the CEO of our company. I interviewed with my then boss, Sarah, and they got the job, or they gave me the job. I was excited. They were excited. 2 weeks later, when I was set to start, our head of people emailed me and said, looks like we've got this little thing going on. I'm sure you'll be in the office in a couple of weeks. So we sent you your laptop and we'll see you soon. And then I did not meet my boss until after I left London and moved to the US about a year later.
Wow.
And that was the thing that I stepped into. So you're right. We were all kind of on our own in our own ways during that time. I found the Pre-Sales Collective around the same time that I moved to New York, and that was really helpful. I didn't even know that there were people thinking about this whole pre-sales thing and how to do it well, how to show up, and become excellent at it. I've always enjoyed being quite good at the things that I do, so this was a huge opportunity for me. And I think, just like you said, I wanted to keep going. So New York solutions engineer, and here I am. And I have to say this whenever I get the chance to talk about being New York's SE, NYC SE. If there's someone out there who wants to dethrone me, I think that would be excellent, because the more the merrier. In fact, maybe we could turn it into like a content thing. Do you remember when Logan Paul was boxing? And I think that was it Mayweather? I can't even remember at this point, but it was heavily watched and it became a big thing. So if we want to do some sort of pre-sales off for New York City, let's do it.
Absolutely. I would love to see that. Like maybe some people making some video submissions about, post something on YouTube or on LinkedIn and just post it out there with, I don't know, we'll have to think of some type of a group or a hashtag or something like that to put it into, where it will collate together of, hey, why you're actually New York's SC. Because you're right. Like this, every space we go into within pre-sales, whether it's podcasts or local areas or get-togethers or enablement or training, we aren't at the point of saturation yet. Like we're not even close to that. And the more we can get people wanting to be better as pre-sales professionals, not just doing their job, I think the better we all still get at this point. So yeah, no, that would be an interesting event. It's funny. This is now 2 podcasts in a row where we've talked about trying to set up some type of a tournament.
Oh, here we
That's
go.
pre-sales
I do
focused.
love a good little tournament. Here's the thing, right? If you think about the pre-sales sphere as it is today, it's almost so small that you can still keep it all in your head. You can kind of think of all the people that are creating content. You can kind of think of the organizations that are leading the charge. And that's an indicator of how early we are. Because you could never do that with sales as a whole. You could never think about, all right, I know all the CRMs. Like I know every single thing that's trying to sell to a salespeople. But no, I almost do know every single demo software that exists. So we are still so nascent, and I'm ready to see what happens next.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's starting to get into an explosion, especially when you think of like not just the tech itself, but the tech itself is also growing because you add AI, and now all of a sudden there's a lot of AI SC tools out there that are exploding. But all of the different training companies that are out there, all the different coaching opportunities that are out there for people, certifications, it's growing, which is great. But it's again, you kind of keep it all within your head at this point, which is good and bad. I want it to grow faster. I want there to be more than we can all handle, because I think we'll all get better because of it. I just know we will.
100%.
But we're here to talk about going beyond pre-sales, if I can use my own title. We're here to talk about stuff kind of outside of that relates to our jobs. And when you and I were talking in New York, we started talking about music, and I know I can actually see your guitar in the background as well. I've got mine. I'm not sure if mine's even in frame, but you're a musician, and I'd love to just hear kind of a musician's perspective on how in the heck can music relate to what you do in your day job?
Yeah, this is my favorite thing to talk about. I could talk about music for ages because there are so many ways to tackle it. Let me throw one to all of the SCs that are having a hard time out there right now. I grew up as a classical pianist. So whatever you're doing, you're grinding away, your demo environment is breaking down, your API calls are not going through, whatever issues you're having. I've done that 100 times more sitting at the piano trying to get Chopin's Fantasy Impromptu to sound good. And I think that's where it all starts, because when you're a musician, you get comfortable with failure. You have to, because you can't just wake up one day and be good at the piano. You can't just wake up one day and be good at the guitar. And you also can't go online, watch a video, and become good at the guitar. You can't buy a little thing, a little trinket, and become good at the guitar. And I think that is so the way with solutions engineering too. Not only because we're dealing with technology, but because we're dealing with people. Yeah. And you can't just learn that in one day. I mean, when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, I was learning a lot from the stories that you've had of dealing with different stakeholders throughout your career. And I feel like I see the same things almost in every opportunity that I have to work with people, both the people within my company and then with our external stakeholders. It's like there are new, fresh things to learn every single time. And I think that I've had this drive to get things right because of being a musician. It's like you know what you want it to sound like. Either if you're playing a piece that you already know, or you're learning a song that you know, or if you're writing something, you just get to that point when your hands are comfortable and you don't think about it so much anymore. And that is this great moment of realization, because then you're approaching mastery, and then you're able to kind of take it in a lot of different directions. I used to stand out quite a lot when we played competitions because I would bring, I guess, what you would call some sort of attitude to the pieces that we were playing. Classical music has always been kind of an angsty thing. That might be a little bit surprising, but especially during the Romantic era, I think a lot of people were writing music to say something. And there were a lot of social dynamics during the times. I mean, I'm talking about music as if it's one thing, but I grew up playing classical piano. That's kind of how it started for me. And I would continue to bring that because I'm a teenager at this point. And I would bring those strong emotions that you deal with as a teenager to my playing in a competition. There was nothing I loved more than hitting the piano really hard and then making it sound good. A low octave is like my favorite thing in the whole world. That's why I love the Fantasy Impromptu so much. I don't know if you're familiar, but for anyone else out there who's listening, it starts with one octave and it's just one note. One note and it rings out. And then you get into this really, really building melody, which is just incredible. And so that's kind of like where I started. It's how do you learn something where you're forced to go through failure after failure, sitting at the piano for hours trying to get something right, and then ending up finally in a product which then you take in front of other people. Because I think that's the important thing, right? When you're working on technology now, when I'm working on how to make a demo look good and make sure the API calls are going to get across the point that I want to, it's almost like my customers are my piano judges, and they're going to have a look. And if I can go even one step further here, there's something really interesting that happened to me because I went and played a Tchaikovsky piece in a Tchaikovsky competition, and I came second. I was very happy with that. And it turns out later on that the person who came first was the student of the head judge. And I'm sure we've all been in an RFP process or something where you put your best effort forward. You might be the best vendor out there. You really, really go through all the motions and you're looking really good, only to find out that the person that got selected was already going to win. They already knew the CEO of the company.
Already going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? You still learn so much out of that.
Oh, you do. Yeah. And I want to unpack something you said. I actually wrote it down here. Getting comfortable with failure. I think it's a beautiful statement because we don't think about failure in the world of pre-sales. I think partially it's because we don't think about practicing. And so there's not room for failure. There's not room to fail because if you fail, you're failing in front of a customer. But I think getting comfortable with failure in order to eventually get good to the point where you're getting that mastery that we said is, I think, a very important part of anyone who's learning music, whether that's being trained as a classical pianist, whether you're playing blues, whether you're, trying to learn the latest pop songs on your piccolo. I don't know, whatever you're going to be learning. You're not going to get it right the first time, and you have to be okay with not being right the first time. I actually remember my son early on when he was trying to learn music. He kept trying instruments and then not wanting to do it anymore, and then trying instruments and not wanting to do it anymore, mostly because he didn't like not knowing it right away. He didn't like not being good at it right away. He since then has picked up the cello and has been playing that now for a little over a year and has been loving it, being comfortable with failure and actually seeing himself getting better.
Beautiful instrument.
But I love that it's beautiful. I love the way it sounds. I may have not pushed, but encouraged him when he was interested that was a good choice.
I'd go cello over violin if I was going to have it in my house.
Yeah, he knew he wanted a string instrument, so he went to that thing where you go and get to try out what each sounds like. And he was either going cello or viola, which I think are two beautiful sounding ranges, and opted for the cello and has been liking it. But the other stuff that he had, like he couldn't progress. He never got to the point where he could ever get good until he got past even just the initial failure is okay in order to get better. And I think you're absolutely right. We need to be able to embrace that to get better in pre-sales as well. But I guess in the follow-up question I have for you is, how do you embrace failure when you're expected to succeed every time?
Wow, what a question. I think there is something you have to do ahead of time, right? And that is set expectations and set spaces for yourself to fail. Because no one ever did the best thing that they ever accomplished by just going out there and getting it right the first time. So I agree with you. I think we need to normalize and find these rhythms where we're allowed to rehearse and fail. Think about it. Your Olympic athlete is not going out there and they're not running the 100-meter sprint every single day, right? There are ways of them training for it. And there are so many things going on. Oh, man, I love the Olympics. I'm so happy that they just happened. But the same thing in music and the same thing in solutions. And it all comes down to trust, right? One of the things that I actually struggled with coming into solutions was that I was much more of a solo player. Being a solo pianist means that you're kind of up there on your own. I didn't have a lot of experience playing with orchestras or other groups. Kind of a funny story. I was recording a track with my friends in college. I was on our college chapel band, and I was the electric guitarist at that point. We skipped over my angsty teenager phase where I also picked up the electric guitar and listened to a lot of, let's say, northeastern metal. But I brought my Ibanez RG series, black guitar, very spiky, and I could not play to a click track. It was embarrassing because I was so much more used to playing the feel of things. Yeah. And so that was a big failure, and I did it in front of everyone. But here's the thing. We had been playing music together, this group of friends and I, for a year at that point. And so no one gave me a hard time about it. They just said, okay, look, here's the sound engineer. We know him. His name's Matt, too. Maybe you guys can figure something out. So Matt probably destroyed my eardrums by blasting the click, and I finally did get it eventually. But no one ever gave me a hard time about it, and it's because we had developed that degree of trust. They had actually seen me, and they knew that I knew how to play music. They knew that I could sound pretty good with a little lead line here or there. Oh, and I pride myself on my lead lines. I gotta tell you right now, I'll send you a track or two that's on Spotify where I wrote some lead lines, and they're just some of the best things that I've ever done. Really, really proud of that. Anyway, bring this back to pre-sales. I think you got to find the same things. Build that degree of trust with the people that you're working with. And a lot of the times, if something is not going right, there are ways for your partners in pre-sales to come in and help out. Let's say your demo's freezing up. I don't think your AE has nothing else they want to say. They can always jump in and say, all right, well, why don't we give that a couple of minutes to warm up, fix itself, and we can either focus on another part of discovery, or let's just go into some questions on what we've just seen, right? There are always ways you can pivot out. Developing that trust allows you to kind of be in a rhythm where you can do that. And oh boy, does it feel good when you've got that. When you've got this place where you know that your AE is going to jump in, that's also really incredible. That's your synchronized swimming of a demo. And I've got that with a couple of my AEs. Being at a small company, it's like I've worked with a group of 5 or so AEs for the last couple of years, and getting to that level is incredible.
Yeah, we talk a lot about trying to build trust with our customers, but I think you're right. The trust with those we work with, I think, can make or break every sales call, right? If you, especially not just from a performance perspective, but as you were talking, I was thinking about, it's also a little bit of relief of pressure knowing if I make a mistake, my boss isn't going to get a call about how bad I am. Because I don't know if you have, but I've certainly been in situations where I haven't had that trust there with sellers that I've worked with. And there has always been that fear, whether realized or not, even though it has happened, whether realized or not, there's always that fear of, if I don't do well, what are they going to think I can't do it? Are they going to be willing to continue to work with me? Are they going to ask for someone else to be on the account? When you've got that trust built and little mess ups happen or little missteps happen, it's not a reflection suddenly of you. It's, well, everyone takes a bad shot every now and then. Everyone messes up. Everyone flubs a line, flubs a measure, drops the beat or whatever it is. Every now and then doesn't mean you're a bad musician. And that's, it doesn't mean you're a bad seller as well. And that's, we don't focus. We should focus on that a lot more, I think. We just don't focus on it enough.
There's 2 things I want to say to that. One, I occasionally go down these really deep rabbit holes of watching aviation YouTube. So looking at how planes operate and how pilots think, how pilots and air traffic controllers interact with each other. And I had a nice conversation with Garen Hess of Consensus about this, because I know he's also a private pilot. And they have this idea of a no-fault go-around. And what that means is if they're going into land and something's not right, they can just say, okay, we're reporting the landing, we're going to try it again. And basically what that means is the landing and the takeoff are the 2 most important phases of flight. A plane, as long as it's got fuel, can basically stay in the air for a very long time. And that's pretty sustainable. But you really don't want to mess up when you're taking off or when you're landing. And so they give these pilots the ability to say, the authority even to say, you're in charge. This is your responsibility. If you don't like how this is going, you say, abort landing, we're going around. And that means you get the chance to just take that plane back up into the air and reset your gauges, reset everything that you're doing, because there's so many things going on, right? It's physical, it's mental, it's mechanical. And it's kind of similar here, because that go around is going to cost the airline time and money, and it's inconveniencing the passengers, it's inconveniencing the flight crew. But at the end of the day, the captain is able to do that. And that no fault go around means the airline is not going to hold that against the pilot. And one day I'd love to implement something like that at an organization where I'm a leader, to say, like, no fault feedback. Say, when I give you feedback, it's not me faulting you. It's just saying we want to do better next time, right? We're on the same team, no fault, but here's how we go. Because everyone hits a bad shot every once in a while. And I don't know if you've ever, I mean, sure, right? You've probably got like a time in your head where you've messed up on stage playing music. I think they're actually hilarious. If you can like have that attitude about it, where your drummer just misses the fill by half a beat, and you can kind of like just go along with it, because like, all right, well, the music is still going to keep going. It's like, I can't stop now. It's kind of funny. And then you make memories out of it. Like, imagine if that's how we approached our sales calls, because guess what? The clients, they're people too. If you can like find a way to bring in some humor in that call, I find that it disarms people so much, because everyone is sitting at their desks all day long trying to be professional. Just the chance to have an exhale, maybe a little chuckle here or there, Oh, look,
Yeah.
my bad. Look at that. That's not
Whoops.
supposed to happen. Oops. Obviously, we don't want to be doing that, but when it does happen, let's own it.
Let it happen. Yeah, let it happen.
And say, just give me 20 seconds. Be right back.
Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I've seen it slightly implemented in some places, but not to the fullest extent. Not where I feel like the pre-sales team felt like there wasn't some level of risk involved with the feedback that's being given. I have seen where AEs have built enough trust, going back to what we talked about before, where they feel like they can give that feedback and it'll be received in the right light, but not where it's, hey, here's a complete no-fault go-around. I just want to talk about what happened there, but just so we can do it better. I love that. I agree. I think we should be doing more of that. Like that's, we will only get better in that way.
Yeah, I remember I said there was a second thing, and the second thing was dress rehearsals. Because I also did drama growing up, and that's speaks for itself, really. But the idea is, what can we do to run this whole thing before we get in front of the client tomorrow? What if we just did the whole meeting today? And I don't know how you've experienced this, but I actually find that people don't like this idea.
They don't. I have tried things like this. I agree the value of it. I see the value of it. Also coming from a theater background and a music background, where in both times you don't practice in front of the customer is sort of the or you don't practice in front of the audience, right? Or if you do, it's like it's meant to be. It's all buttoned up, and we're just checking the last couple things. Not what we tend to do, which is, well, let's just see what happens. I hope this works out well. It's like, you know you've only got a short, like, especially when they've asked you to deliver a lot in a short amount of time, and you're like, well, it's a 45-minute meeting. We have about 52 slides. How are we going to handle it? It's like, I'll just skim past a lot of these. We'll be
see
fine.
what resonates.
Well, yeah, we'll see we'll see exactly. We'll see what resonates. So we're inviting more time wasting into the conversation. Of
we're going to play
test.
Wonderwall at the start. If that's going well, we'll keep going. I don't know.
Yeah, but no, yeah, you would never do that in with your set list, like where you're going, oh well, actually playing those two songs back to back, I have to retune my guitar between those twice, and I don't have someone to do that for me, or a second guitar. Maybe putting that song in the middle was a bad idea. Yeah. So we would never do that for theater. We would never do that for music, but people are so reticent to do it. I've seen, and I don't know why, I have seen people say that they don't think it's a good use of time.
I've heard that too.
But what could be a better use of time than actually running through how it's going to sound to the customer, so that you can go, that didn't land at all. We need to change that part. Instead of in the meeting having everyone have this look of, this isn't landing at all. How can I tell them to stop talking?
Yeah. And you know what? I think you're helping me put a few things together, because as a performer, I think I sometimes have this sense that I can tell how something is going to go. And I almost want to run it so people can see that there are a couple of disruptions that we can actually smooth over, right? They're not big deals. We just need to have a plan. Let's say, like, how do we go from sharing a bunch of slides to starting a demo? That sounds like maybe the most trivial thing in the world, but there is a way to really get that right. And if you're coming in, let's say from a business case conversation in the first half of the call, moving into a demo, or the other way around, how can you make that transition really effective? And yeah, these are the kinds of things that I've heard people just say, okay, we'll figure it out. But I think as a performer, I understand that there is an arc to these things. There's an arc to a good piece of music. There's an arc to a good theater show. There's an arc to a demo. And dare I say it, there's an arc to a deal. You have like your rising action, you've got the tension in the middle, and then you'll have a resolution at the end. I think that's like the 3 steps that I usually see, and those things will look different in everything. But if you think about the context of like a call, you want to introduce people and you want to catch their attention. Back to the fantasy impromptu, one giant loud note, that grabs your attention. So whatever it is on the call, you want something that's going to say, all right, customer, we know you. We know what you're here for. Like, here's something that's going to grab your attention. We're going to help you increase your revenue by X. And here's how we're going to do it. Then
Right.
you've got that middle section where it kind of develops ideas. Hopefully they're coming along the ride with you. And at the end, you've got your next steps and actions. And that's kind of your denouement. I could talk about arcs too.
Yeah.
This is so great.
Or you could do it the way that most sales calls go, which is you set everything up. You spend too much talking at the beginning of the meeting. You go on some sidetracks. And before you get to the climax of the meeting, time is up and 5 people have left. That's how... Again, we need to practice these things because we know it's going to take longer if we practice them and we don't. Like, we're shooting for this ideal, but not willing to test it out first, which in no other industry does that work. Thank goodness that doesn't work that way with pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's just release the drug and we'll adjust as needed. Electronics shouldn't operate that way. Unless you're a Cybertruck, then obviously you can.
You can build it as you're selling it.
I mean, it's all glued together. It's not going to matter. But I mean, most other areas, that approach of non-giving it a go or testing it out first would never work. It's in strategic, I guess is the way I would phrase it. It's not a good strategy. Mm-hmm. What's the word I'm looking for? Unstrategic?
I think in-strategic is great.
Because
you know what? I think it actually captures it's not necessarily a giant blunder on its own. You can have meetings that go okay if you don't do that. But it is in-strategic in that you didn't do your best planning.
Yeah. It's in the long haul, you will have more meetings go wrong than right by taking that approach. And versus planning things out, testing it, practicing it, etc. That's it for episode 1, or I should say part 1 of the interview with Matthew James. Next time, we take a little bit of a twist into the world of gaming. So check back for the next episode, or if you're binge watching these, one of the next one. Talk with Matthew more about his love of pre-sales and the world of board games, video games, etc. But for now, thank you so much for watching and listening. And please do take a moment, drop a note in the comments if there's something that you think is interesting that we haven't considered about the topic. Leave a subscription, a thumbs up, a like, whatever you can do on whatever platform you're watching or listening. It's much appreciated. But until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.